Chapter 4, Automatic Feelings. You probably have noticed that quite often, we are using the words emotions and feelings. Let me recap briefly before I go on to add another parameter. Emotions are undefined embryonic particles. If you recall, they are part of the basic particles which will develop later to be either feelings or thoughts, according to how they evolve. When an emotion is labeled with a thought, it becomes a feeling. You can feel sad, you can feel anxious, and so on. This is because you have added a thought to it and it now has a name. When we are aware of an emotion, it has become a feeling. Let's add another term, mood. Imagine yourself as a thermostat. When things are going well, your mood is good. When things are going badly, your mood is bad. The thermostat is either up or down. We know that the way we think and feel directly affect our mood. We also know that when we feel in a good mood, it affects the way we feel and think, and appreciate what's going on around us. When the thermostat sticks, it affects the way we feel and think. The thermostat, your mood, dictates how we feel and think. Instead of our thoughts adapting only to our surroundings, we think and feel in accordance with our mood. Imagine a particular mood, whether it be bad, good, optimistic, and so on. It does affect our thoughts and feelings. I will come back to these characteristics later. When we are dealing with illnesses, we will discuss mood. So, we have now 3 definitions: emotions, feelings, and moods. 3 more objects that we can move around in our model of understanding. If you remember, we defined thought in terms we would use as if we were a computer. We talked about thoughts as being binary in nature and definite. They have a beginning, they have an end, and they have a definite time sequence. Emotions and feelings are not so. To give you an insight, think about a rainbow. If you were taught physics like I was, you will remember all the colors of the rainbow. Red is followed by orange, followed by yellow, and so on, until we reach violet. One follows another. You don't think about red when you are thinking about violet. Now sit back, relax, you may close your eyes if you wish, and imagine a rainbow. Try and feel it. You have no problem in seeing and even feeling the feeling one gets when seeing a whole rainbow. You can imagine all the colors at once. There is something very pleasant about it. But, can you see the difference? Emotions have no boundaries, emotions do not obey time laws, and they are very different in the way we appreciate them from the way we appreciate thoughts. As we develop as a species, emotions and feelings keep us alive. If we felt no fear, we would have been long gone in that jungle. If we did not enjoy procreating, there would have been no future generations. Why take the bother? I believe basically 4 kinds of emotions exist: those involved with procreation, those involved in living, those involved avoiding danger, and those involved in death. I can easily see why some of you will say there are only 2 groups, life and death. I am not sure that this is so. I do not think us causing the death of something else to eat is at the same quality and dimension as avoiding our own death. There are 2 sets of positive forces and 2 sets of negative forces. In nature, we invest far more power in preventing our destruction than in promoting our well-being. You have only to look at defense expenditures as compared to education or welfare. Similarly, if you look at the car, you will see that the strongest force the car can rapidly generate is the power to stop. You can stop much faster than you can accelerate. This is one of the basic laws of nature, and so it is with us. Everything we do is to obey this rule. The defensive nature of any act will be more powerful than the positive nature. Let me digress for a minute. Whenever we bond, say as a family or a union, we will be more coherent and powerful when we are defending ourselves than when we are deciding what is the best thing to do to promote ourselves. When I come to therapy, we will discuss this again. I will be asking the question, what do you want to do and what is the best thing to do? At this stage, I think you should be considering what I'm saying in terms of defense or progress. I wish to refer again to good and bad. I know that for some of my readers this will be hard to accept. Nevertheless, I do believe, after many years of working with people, that there is good and bad. Evil does exist. One of our basic emotions is to avoid evil. Most people possess this attribute. They not only know what is bad, they take no pleasure in it and actively avoid it. As frightening as this may sound, I firmly believe there are some people who do not possess this quality or ability. They do not avoid evil, and they accept evil as part of their acceptable feelings and eventually their behavior. On the other hand, most of us, if not all of us, do know what is good, and we have an innate ability to say what is good. I will go into this very fully when I'm talking about how our personalities and how we develop, including how thoughts and feelings develop. But, I want to restate, I firmly believe there is good and evil. Unfortunately, some people are unable to shun evil. So, we see, like a spectrum of colors in the rainbow, our emotional palette consists of 4 basic components. We ascribe to each feeling its intensity and temporality. Let me explain. We know how strong the feeling is and whether it was in the past or anticipated in the future. You're probably shaking your head and saying, "You said emotions aren't temporal." That's right, they aren't, but feelings have a cognitive aspect and thoughts are temporal. Let me give you an example. If you have been attacked by a snake in the past, you recognize the danger and you will fear it. It can be defined. I am frightened of being attacked by a snake. I know it has happened in the past. I want to quickly delve into imagination. Don't worry, I will do more fully in a 2 chapters time. We are able to improvise a facsimile in our imagination. In reality, it may not have happened, but in our ability to fantasize or picture something that hasn't happened that could happen, it is as if it is in our virtual past. As such, being an emotion, it can exist in the future, because as we say, emotions have no time boundaries. I do not wish to delve too deeply, but you can begin to picture how false memories evolve. The subject is too emotive, provocative, and it does not help me promote my basic ideas. I prefer being emotive and provocative when I discuss therapy and especially medication. If we have an undefinable emotion that something can happen to us, but we cannot define it cognitively, we will define it in our thoughts and call it anxiety. I know this sounds quite confusing. I know I am saying that our definition of past and present is subjective and depends on a very important parameter which we have not yet discussed: fantasies and daydreams. Don't be too alarmed and don't give up. We will come to describe fantasies much later on. I want you to be reassured that they are central to what I'm explaining, and I promise you will understand. However, I do have to explain a lot of things before I can explain what I mean by fantasies and then go on to explain the importance. We have discussed the 4 quadrants of emotions and added a timescale, which is part of our ability to let us add another axis. Now, we are seeing in actual fact, a 3D picture of emotion. You can have the same feeling about your child and what is happening to a child in a far-off land. It's the same color of emotion and feeling, but the hue is not as intense. The further we go away from ourselves, and yet, still relate in some way to the object, our intensity of feeling will be diminished. So, we react with pride or anger when something happens to our child in a much more intense hue than we do once his friend undergoes the same experience or a child in another country. The hue of the feeling is governed very much by how much we feel invested or identified with the object around us. This is another important point which we will come back to when we discuss development and how difficulties in the ability to take distance may lead to certain flaws in our feelings and subsequent reactions. If we are discussing the intensity of the emotion in terms of distance, we have to mention another aspect of human behavior. To survive, we herded. As a herd, we firstly could protect ourselves, after that we could join or attack other herds. There is a great significance in belonging, it makes us feel good. One of the most pleasant feelings we have is the modern experience of quality of life. This experience panders to the non-sexual positive quadrants and answers, or sublimates a lot of levels of intensity, a good feeling. Quality of life in today's society, in my opinion, is the ability to belong and to be proud of what you belong to. In the case of our village, Oranet, every 5 years at election time, we trot quality of life out and receive promises and disappointments. We all want to belong and we all want to be proud. The need is so great that major industries have developed around it. Look at today's football scene. I can imagine the smile on David's face as he'd remember the one other place where we both belonged, the terraces of Elland Road, the home of Leeds United. For those of you who find that hard to follow, remember the words of Liverpool's manager, Bill Shankly: "Some people believe football is a matter of life and death. I am very disappointed with that attitude. I can assure you, it is much more important than that." But, as seriously as you may take this book, remember Shankly also said, "The trouble with referees is that they know the rules, but they don't know the game." Automatic feeling and emotions. Let's discuss automatic feeling and emotions. Most of the time, we are completely unaware that we have feelings or emotions. They are playing an essential part as an adjunct to the automatic thinking. As the radar is spinning around and picking up blips, the blips are colored in accordance to the automatic emotions which have been cataloged and carefully stored so that they are readily accessed. The need to access quickly is paramount, and so our conscious is short-circuited. This ability is an essential property if we are to survive. However, like every biological function, if there is no auditing, it will eventually make mistakes and continue to make mistakes, correcting until the need to correct is unavoidable. Until that happens, a lot of damage can occur. As you remember, the hue and color of the automatic feeling will determine if we are to become aware or not. If you recall, I did say that avoidance is a stronger power than seeking pleasure. In other words, your automatic pilot is more likely to react to possible discomfort, fear and danger than to seek pleasure. Pleasure is not essential to survive. Avoiding danger or unpleasantness is. One last point. Our experience of feelings is stored as emotions. The stored emotion plus thought is part of our automatic everything and is stored in our non-aware conscious. In other words, we can only react to an event in accordance with what was in the past. Our new reaction will be stored in the subconscious and recalled later. We learn and change in retrospect and not on the fly. This is why an essential part of the claims I make about online therapy says show the automatic thinking and feeling, ask if it is appropriate, and the patient will decide and change. We are merely imitating the normal process. Let us summarize. We have discussed and defined emotions, feelings and moods. We have seen the reciprocal relationship between feelings and thoughts with mood. Remember, in the previous chapter, we spoke of the reciprocal relationship between feelings and thoughts. We have discussed how emotions and feelings are not bound in time and space in the same way that thoughts are. We discussed how we may artificially divide emotions into 4 categories and how the different intensities of the emotion and feelings arise. We have seen how important feelings are in the process of automatic thinking. We discussed a time delay between an experience and change. I mentioned, and will go into much deeper, the idea of good and evil. I fully realize it is a difficult concept, and for many,